I'm saying, what let me tell you. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Daled, Daf 44, I think, of Masechet Ksubis. Friends, my chair is wobbly. That's a little better. Daf 44 of Masechet Ksubis. Well, the first part of the Daf talks about, like we were talking about at the end of the Daf yesterday, with like Rav Huna and the two Ksubas, and one sort of taking the place of the other, or you choose one, that kind of whole thing. Well, no, we're going to see that's Rav Nachman's opinion is about taking the place. Friends, we're going to see there. We see some interesting concepts like Bava Kama, although I think it's Taka Bava Mitzia concepts, whatever it is. And then we get tomorrow halachis of Nari Ma'orasa, Chiyuv Skila. Exciting times today on Babylon Talmud. Let's go weiter. We're on Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph, 3 lines into the page. Omar Mar. So we had said yesterday at the end of the Daf, the opinion of Rav Huna, Iboya ba'ai gabyo. Friends, what's this talking about? Who could tell me? Of course, it's talking about a situation where where a woman produces two Ksubis. One was written earlier for 200 zuz, one was written later for 300 zuz. So Rav Huna says that she has a choice. If she wants to collect from the earlier date, well then she'll have to, she can collect the 200 zuz from the earlier date. Or if she wants to collect 300 zuz, then she has to go by the later date. The nafkamina being if the husband sold property between those dates. Well, if she uses the later document, which might be for more money, but if the date on the document is after the property was sold, well then the person who bought the property is just going to say, get lost. I bought the property before the date on your document. So, anyways, Rav Huna says you got to choose one, either the 200 zuz document or the 300 zuz document. Now, so again, so Amar Mas, we said earlier, Ibaya b'hai gabya. So Rav Huna's opinion is that she could choose which document that she wants to use. Excuse me 1 second, I'm yawning, but I'm also talking at the same time. Okay, that was pretty cool. Lema pliga to Rav Nachman. So let's say that Rav Huna Taka argues on Rav Nachman, which is kind of a big deal, because Rav Huna, Rav Huna was a contemporary of Rav Nachman. Right, Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, and Rav Nachman were contemporaries. Okay, so let's say that Rav Huna argues on Rav Nachman. That Rav Nachman says, Shnei shtaris hayotzin boze acher zeh, that if you have two documents that, like come one after the other, such as in our example, you have two Ksubas, one's for 200 zuz, one's for 300 zuz. Bitel sheni es harishin, says Rav Nachman that the second one, the later one, nullifies and makes irrelevant the earlier one. It replaces the earlier one. So let's say that Rav Huna and Rav Nachman argue. Rav Huna says you could choose which one. Rav Nachman says the second one wins. The second one replaces the first one. But 1 second, but not so fast. Doesn't Rav Papa say about Rav Nachman's opinion that umoder of Nachman, that Rav Nachman, however, admits the osiv bedikla, the tosefes kosve, that if he added epis to the second document, for example, if it's a document about property and he adds a palm tree to the second document, but there's some kind of addition to the second property, so then he's adding it to say, choose which one you want, right? Use the earlier document for the initial amount, or you can use the later document for the enhanced amount. So here also in our case, right, the first document was for 200. The second document was for 200 plus another 100, was for 300. So Rav Nachman would agree in that case as well, that kilu, if there's an addition in the second document, then the second one doesn't automatically replace the first one, but you can choose which one. If you want to take the earlier document for less money, that's fine, or you can take the later document for more money. Your choice. Gufa, we said earlier, Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman shnei shtaris hayotzin boze acher zeh, that if you have two documents, one after the other, Bitel sheni es harishin, the second document, nullifies and replaces the first one. Omer Rav Papa, and says Rav Papa Moder of Nachman, that Rav Nachman admits the Osif Beidikla Tosefes Kosvei, that if he added epis to the second document, he did it in order to add on to the base amount and say, look, if you want, you can use the second document for more money or the earlier document for less money. Now, Pshita rishin b'mecher v'sheni b'matone. Now, obviously, in a situation where the first document is a document of a sale, and the second document is a document of a gift. Okay, so let's say you have a piece of house. Okay, Reuven sold his house to Shimon. And Shimon has two documents now that say that Reuven sold him his house. One document, says Rishon, the first document is b'mecher, says that Reuven sold him his house. V'sheni b'matone. And the second one says that Reuven gifted him his house. So certainly, liyapos kocho hu dichosav le mishum dina de bar mitzvah. So what's if the first one was a sale and the second one was a gift, how come? The point being that the reason for the second document as a gift is because the dina de bar mitzvah. Who can tell me what dina de bar mitzvah is? Dina de bar mitzvah, the first time I remember hearing about dina de bar mitzvah was in yeshiva, about, 15 years ago probably. It was probably in, actually exactly 16 years ago. Probably 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 a tiny bit less. Maybe 15 and 11 and a half months, maybe. Anyway, so the first time I heard about it was this guy in yeshiva. For some reason I wanted to learn with him. I'm not quite sure why, I know why. But anyways, he mentioned it to me. So, good story, right? Dina de bar mitzvah is that if you have, let's say you have a house, okay, and you want to sell your house, so you gotta give the first option to your neighbor. Okay, you gotta knock on your neighbor's door and say, look, I'm looking to sell my house. By the way, if you're interested, you have priority. That's what dina de bar mitzvah is. Now, the thing is, Reuven wanted to sell his house to Shimon, not to his neighbor. But if he gives it as a loophole, that if you give it as a gift to Shimon, so then you don't have to give priority to the neighbor. So, if the first document is a sale and the second document is a gift, so the reason for the gift document is as sort of a loophole, because he wanted to sell it to Shimon and not to his neighbor. So by having a document that says that it's a gift, so then he doesn't have to worry about dina de bar mitzvah. And certainly Rishon b'matone v'sheni b'mecher, if the first document is a gift and the second document is for a sale, the reason why Reuven gave a second document documenting a sale to Shimon was because of a dina de bar chov, that basically when you buy property, you buy it with insurance, right? That the seller backs it up, right? So meaning, if Reuven sells his house to Shimon, Shimon's going to say, okay, this is all fine and good. How do I know that Levi is not going to knock on my door tomorrow and say, oh, by the way, you can't buy this house because Reuven owes us money, and that there's a lien on this house. So therefore, when Shimon buys the house, he's going to buy it with achrayas. He's going to buy it with insurance that basically Reuven's responsible. If Levi comes and says, Shimon, you can't buy that house, there's a lien on it, so Reuven's going to be responsible for that. So now that applies specifically to a sale as opposed to a gift, right? So if Reuven gifted his house to Shimon, and he wants to sort of give extra security to Shimon and stand behind it, he'll write a document that documents a sale, because with that will be sort of the extra security, the extra insurance that if anybody will come to take it, so Reuven will stand behind it. So if the first one is a gift and the second one is a sale, so that is a dina de bal chov. Fine. Who the kasav kain ella. Yishneim b'mecher. But what if you have two documents and both of them are documents of a sale? Shneim b'matone. Or you have two documents and both of them are of a gift. Bitel sheni es harishin. So we said that the second one, right? Rav Nachman says that the second one will replace the first one. My time. Why does the second document replace the first one? Rafram Amar says, Rafram Emer oduye odi le. Well, because I'll say that the person, right, in possession of the document will admit that the first one was fraudulent. If he's got two documents, he'll admit that the first one was fraudulent. That's why the second one replaces the first one. Rav Acha, Omar says, Rav Acha, Eimar, Achule Achle L'Shibude. Alternatively, you could say that Shimon, who's got this document, he'll say, look, both documents are good, but just let's not care about the first document. We'll rely on the second document. My benai, what's the nafkamina? Well, the nafkamina is that according to the first way, that if you say that the first document was fraudulent, well then it's a fraudulent document. According to the second one that says, look, let's just rely on the second one, forget about the first one. The first one's a good document, we're just not going to rely upon it. So therefore, the nafkaminas arure saide. The witnesses that are signed on the first document, can they be trusted as witnesses? If we say it's a fraudulent document, what were they doing signing on a fraudulent document? We can't trust them anymore. But if you say that it's a fine document, we're just not going to rely upon it, so then the witnesses are fine. What if Shimon ate fruits from this property in the interim? So if you say it was a fraudulent document, he's got to pay Reuven back for the fruits that he ate, because it wasn't his field at the time. It was a fraudulent. The document that he had proving that it was fraudulent. But if you say that we're just going to rely upon the second one, but the first one was also a good document, so any fruits that he ate, technically they were his fruits. With the task as well as who's going to pay property tax. Right? Again, if you say it was a fraudulent document, so then Reuven, it was Reuven's property. So Reuven's gotta pay property tax. But if you say it was a good document, we're just not going to rely upon it, well then Shimon's responsible for property tax. So those are the nafkaminas. So what do we say, the Gabri, the Aloche, by the Ksubo? When you have two documents, right? When she produces two Ksubis, one for 200 zuz and one for 300 zuz. So Rav Huna had said that the 200 zuz she can collect from the earlier one. Wait 1 second. Wait, where am I? Give me a second. 1 second. The whole verse is right. Right. 1 second. So we had said. Okay, 1 second. I'm sorry. We had said earlier that regarding the collection of the ksuba, when can you collect the ksuba? Rav Huna had said that you can collect the mana masayim from the erisin and the tosefes from the nisuin. Rav Asi had said that both the mana masayim and the tosefes are from the nisuin. So my have Allah the ksuba. So how do we paskin? Tashma the Amr of Yura Mashmuel Mishum. Rav Elazar Reb Shimon mana masayim in eris and vitosefes min nisuin. So Rav Yehuda Mashmuel says the name of Rav Elazar Reb Shimon, like Rav Huna said, that the mana masayim is from the eris and the tosefes is from the nisuin. Whereas the Chachamim say like Rav Asi, probably Rav Asi is saying like the Chachamim probably. Both the mana masayim and the tosefes min ha nisuin are from the nisuin. Vehilchasa echad zeh vechad zeh min ha nisuin. The halacha is that both the Mana Masayim and the Tosefes are from the time of the Nisuin, like Rav Asi / the Chachamim were saying. Okay. Fine. Friends, look the Mishnah. Hagioris shenizgaira bita ima. So if a woman converts to Judaism, and her daughter converts to Judaism with her. Vizinsa, and then her daughter became a Naira, so I guess she converted prior to being a Naira. Maybe she was 10 years old when she converted, and now she's 12 years old, she's a Naira, and then she got engaged, she was a Naira Me'orasa, Vizinsa, and she was Mizana. Now, in general, a Naira Me'orasa, a betrothed Naira, so if she has a relationship with another fellow, so it's Skila, it's an Isra Skila. Now, a married woman who has a relationship with an extramarital relationship, so then it's chenek. So now, in this situation of this girl who converted to Judaism when she was, let's say, 10 years old, and then now she's a Naira Maras and she has a relationship outside of the betrothal. So Hagiyorishin is Garibita Ima Vizinsa Arezo Bechenek. So it's not Skila, it's chenek. Skila is stoning, chenek is strangulation. Ein lo Pesach Beisav v'lo Me'asela. We don't have the Pesach Beisav nor the Me'asela. What does it say? What does it say? Wait, where am I? Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, great. So if you look at the pasuk by Nara Moros, it says Votziu es Nara el Pesach Beisavia Uskalua, that they take her out to the entranceway of her father's house and they stone her. And of course we know also by Motzi Shemra that if a husband claims that his wife had a extra betrothal relationship, so then, and if he's wrong, so then we whip him. So, and also he has to pay 100 selah fine. So Eina lo Pesach Beis Ha'av. So we don't take her to the entrance of her father's house when we kill her. V'lo selah, and if he turns out to be a liar, so then there's no 100 selah fine. Now, if this girl was conceived prior to her mother's conversion, but she was born after her mother had converted, harezu b'skila. So then if she becomes an Arab Orasos, then she gets skila, just like a Bas Yisrael. Ve'ena lo Pesach Beis Ha'av, but also, nonetheless, they wouldn't stone her at the entrance to her father's house, v'lo mea selah, and also if the husband turns out to be a liar, he doesn't have 100 selah fine. If this girl was conceived and born after her mother's conversion, well then she's just a Bas Yisrael in every way. So she'll be chayiv skila if and we stone her by the entrance to her father's house, and if the guy turns out to be a liar, he's going to have to pay 100 selah and get whipped. Yesh la of ve'ein la Pesach Beis Ha'av. If she has a father but the father doesn't have a house, Yesh la Pesach Beis Ha'av, if there's a father's house, ve'ein la'av, but the father is dead. Harei zo b'skila, so then she nonetheless gets skila, lo nemer Pesach Beis Ha'av el l'mitzvah. When it says the entrance to her father's house, that's just, if there is a father's house and there's a father, so then you do it by the father's house. But if there's no father, if there's no father's house, so then you don't. But you'll still stone her. Fine. Says the Gemara, Menane Mile. How do I know? Says Rashi, Shorasa Shlo B'Kedusha V'Leidasu B'Kedusha B'Skila. How do I know that when she was conceived, right, prior to her mother's conversion, then she was born after her mother converted, that the punishment is stoning? Rish Lakish Damar Kro. Rish Lakish says that the pasuk says V'Mesa. Right? What does the pasuk say? It says that the men of her city will stone her and she will die. So it should be enough to just say that the men of the city will stone her. Why does it say v'mesa? To include a situation where she was conceived prior to her mother's conversion and born after her mother's conversion. If that's the case, so why don't we also then say that the husband, if he turns out to be a liar, then we should whip him. He should be chayiv 100 selahs. Amar kra v'mesa. Well, the pasuk only says v'mesa, that we stone her and she dies. The misa nisraba, she's included for stoning, v'lo l'knas, but not for the fine that the husband needs to pay if he turns out to be a liar. Maybe Vamesa is coming to include not when she was conceived prior to the conversion of her mother and born afterwards, but rather maybe it's talking about a situation where she was conceived and born after her mother converted. But that's just a regular Bas Yisrael. What's the Chiddush? Maybe it's talking about a situation where she was conceived and born prior to her converting. Then what do you do with Yisrael? What are we learning about Yisrael if she was sort of conceived and born right prior to prior to converting, because it says Yisrael, right? I think we learned in Masechta Yevamos that, like, in some ways there's chilukim between a Bas Yisrael and a Giores, right? So if she was born prior to converting, then she's not a Bas Yisrael, she's a Giores. So it says Yisrael, so it's talking about a situation where she was conceived prior to her mother's conversion, but by the time she was born, her mother had already converted. On Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, Amotzi Shemra ala Yisoma Potter, that if you have a fellow who marries a Yisoma, right? He marries an orphan. She doesn't have a father. And the next day he comes and he says she wasn't a basula, she had a relationship after Erusin, we have to stone her. It turns out he's lying. So he's patur, he doesn't get whipped, he doesn't have to pay a fine. Shenemar, as the apostle says, says that you'll give, right, that you're gonna have to, that he pays the father of the naira. And if she's a yisoma, if she's an orphan, she doesn't have a father. Most of Rabbi Yossi bar Oven, V'tevim Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. But Rabbi Yossi bar Oven, some say Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida have a kasha. V'moin yumoin avia. That it says by mifate that if her father will refuse, and it says l'rabos yisoma l'knas to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, to say that it includes the father for l'rabos yisoma l'knas, that it includes a yisoma for the knas. That if, even if the father is dead, then the yisoma still gets defined by mifate. So therefore we want to say if by mifate the yisoma gets defined, so then also by motzi shemra there should be a fine as well. Who most of love mefarikla, but Rabbi Yossi bar Oven v'tem Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida answers his own question. That when it says that there is a fine even right, it goes even to Yisoma. That is, if at the time that the mifata happened, that they had this relationship, the father was still alive. So at that time, the father was still alive. So then the money would go to the father, and if then the father dies, so then the money goes to her. But if at the time that they had this relationship, the father was already dead, so the money does not go to her. And I mean, I think that we had learned about this the other day, right? Because we said that if the money goes to her, well, it was consensual. So, she basically was doing it out of her own will, and therefore we're not going to pay her for these sort of damages. It's not damages. That she was voluntary. Okay, fine. So therefore, if when they had this relationship, the father was alive, and then the father died, so then she will collect the payment. But if she was a yisoma at the time that they had this relationship, then she would not get a payment, and therefore there's no indication that by motzi shemra it would apply to a yisoma. Rava Amar Chayev, Rava says that actually by motzi shemra he would be chayev. Says Rava that if you have a fellow who marries an orphan, and then the next day he makes up a whole story that she wasn't a basula, and that she had a relationship after Erusin, and we have to stone her, and it turns out that he's lying, Rava says, of course he's chayev. We whip him, we make him pay 100 selas. Mimai, how do we know that he's chayev? Miditani ami, from that ami taught basulas yisra vel basulas geir. Well, it says by motzi shemra. What does it say? It says ki otzi shemra al basulas yisra, that he made a bad name of a basula of Yisrael, velo basulas geirim, to exclude basulas geirim. So now, to exclude basulas geirim, but to include a basulas yisoma. So I understand if, the same situation, but for a Yisrael, would be chayiv. So hainu de itzrich kalamute geirim. That's why we need to exclude geirim, right? Meaning if you'd have a Yisoma who was a Giores, so then she would be P'tur, right? Because all Geirim are considered like Yisomim, right? Their family connection, right? They have kind of new family connections when they convert to Judaism. So therefore, right, we're saying Davka, we're excluding a Basulas Geirim was considered like Yisoma, but if you have a Yisoma who is Yisrael, then she would be included in Motzi Shema. But if you say that a Yisoma of Yisrael is Potter, so then why do we Davka need to exclude a Giores? How should be Yisrael Potter? If Motzi Shema doesn't even apply to a Yisoma Yisrael, certainly it doesn't apply to a Giores. So from the fact that we're Davka excluding Giores, but a Yisoma Yisrael would be included in Motzi Shema, that is the opinion of Rav Amar Rish Lakish. Says Rish Lakish, Hamotzi Shemra al Aktana Potter. Now we've seen this before. We saw this in Daf Mem a few days ago. Rish Lakish, Hamotzi Shemra al Aktana Potter. A fellow who's Motzi Shemra by Aktana, he's Potter. Shenema, as the pasuk says, B'nosnu lavia naira mole diber akasu. it says that he's going to give money, that if he turns out to be a liar, he's got to give money to the father of the Naira, and Naira is written with a hey. Right. There are a bunch of other examples where Naira is written without a hey, just Nun Ayin Resh. It's written Na'ar, but we read it Naira. Now here, by Motzi Shemra, it's actually written with a hey. So Naira Mali Dibra Akosov is talking about a Naira, not a Ketana. Maskif Ravacha Bar Abba. Ravacha Bar Abba as a Kasha. Taima Dichsiv Ba Hanaira Halavachi Avamina Afilu Ketana. But the only reason why Motzi Shemra does not apply to a Ketana is because it says Naira with the hey, but if there was no hey in Naira, I would think that Motzi Shemra can apply to a Ketana as well. That makes no sense. It says that if he's telling the truth, Lonin to Besula Naira, she's not a Besula, she had a relationship after Erusin. We stone her. You can't stone a child, and therefore, obviously, forget about if there's a hey in the word Naira. Obviously, it does not apply to Ketanas, because Ketanas don't get stoned. No, when it comes to Motzi Shemra, yes, it's a Naira, and it could never be a Ketana because she's getting stoned, and that wouldn't apply to a Ketana. But the fact is that we know for sure that by Motzi Shemra it's a Naira, because it can't apply to a Ketana, and by Motzi Shemra it says Naira with a hey, and therefore it implies that any place, right? So meaning by Motzi Shemra, it has to be a Naira, and in Davka, it says Naira with a hey. All those other places where there's no hey, well then it's not a Naira. Right? Like in this example where we know for sure it's a Naira, it also has a hey. All those other places where there's no hey, well, in those cases it doesn't need to be referring to a Naira, it can even be referring to a Ketana. Friends, that was Daf Mem Daled of Masechta Ksubis. The first part of the Daf, we mentioned, yesterday we had seen the opinion of Rav Huna, who says that the Ksubah is collected, right, the Mana Masayim from an earlier time, and the Tosefet, right, well, from Erusin, and the Tosefet is from Nisun. We had then also said, according to Rav Huna yesterday, that if she produces two documents, then she could choose if she wants to use the first one or the second one, right? Two Ksubas, she could choose the first or the second. We said that maybe that argues on Rav Nachman, who says that the second one replaces the first one. And then we said, no, actually Rav Nachman would agree with the Puna that if there is an addition to the second document, so then you would be able to choose which one you want. We then kind of looked into the opinion of Rav Nachman, who says that the second shtar replaces the first one. We gave two possible answers. One is either because the first one was fraudulent, or the second one answers that we're just preferring the second one over the first one. There were different nafkaminas about, for example, if the witnesses on the first shtar are trusted or not, right? Because if it's a fraudulent document, we can't trust them anymore. But if it was a good document, then we can. Or what about who pays for the fruits that were eaten in the meantime, or the property tax, things like that. Then we got to a new Mishnah regarding Motzi Shemra and Nara Me'orasa, right? A Nara Me'orasa has a relationship with somebody else. We said that when it comes to a convert, so if she converted after she was born, so then the punishment will be chenek. But if her mother had converted before she was born, so then the punishment will be skila. And then depending on if she was conceived when she was when her mother had already converted, so then there's a question of if a fellow, if he's lying, will be chayav 100 shekels and getting whipped or not. And all right, yeah, that was basically the idea over there. And then we saw machlokas about does Motzi Shemra apply to a Yisoma or not. One opinion was that no, you'd be potter by Yisoma. The opinion of Rava is that you'd be chayiv by Yisoma. Friends, that was Daf Mem Daled, Masechta Ksubis. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.